Madonna is the top-selling female artist of all time, thanks to her long-lasting career and to her 13 studio albums released to date. Madonna's huge music catalog deserves a revisit. So, with the Queen of Pop's latest album, Madame X, coming out soon, let's revisit her albums in chronological order.
Slow down, Poppy.
For the sake of this video, we're going to keep our timeline focused on her studio releases and leave aside her soundtrack, live, and compilation albums. So before we start, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified when we release a new video. Madonna's first album was released in 1983. Conveniently enough, it was simply called Madonna. Now, this was a big break for her, with hits such as Everybody, Burning Up, and Holiday, of course. No wonder she sold 10 million copies of her first album across the globe. Not bad at all! The album was even widely critically acclaimed. Following her massive success with her first album, Madonna was quick to release Like a Virgin. It was released in 1984, a year from her first album. This is her first album to peak at number 1 in the US. She sold 21 million copies worldwide. That's twice as much as her first album. To this day, this album includes some of her best-known works such as Like a Virgin, Material Girl, and Into the Groove. With this album, Madonna broke all industry rules, leading to years of provocative yet artistic decisions for the Queen of Pop. If you thought the release of Like a Virgin meant the peak of Madonna's career, well, think twice, because True Blue was even bigger. This album was released in 1986 and is regarded as Madonna's most successful album. Not only did it sell 25 million copies, it also peaked at number 1 on every major market for music, including the United States, Germany, and the UK. To this date, the legacy of this album still lives on thanks to songs such as Live to Tell, Papa Don't Preach, and Open Your Heart. Back then, True Blue was even featured in the Guinness Book of World Records as the best-selling album of the 80s by a woman. Think about that. In 1989, she released her fourth album, Like a Prayer. Sounds familiar? Just like all her previous albums, Like a Prayer was widely successful, peaking at number 1 in a lot of countries and selling no less than 15 million copies. Although critically acclaimed, the title song and its music video created controversy across the world. The album is featuring songs such as Like a Prayer and Express Yourself, and marks a significant turn in Madonna's career. Her next album was released 3 years later, in 1992. After a decade of commercial success, Erotica is Madonna's first album to sell below 10 million copies and peaked at number 2 on the US charts. Just so we're clear, Erotica sold 6 million copies across the globe. That's not bad at all, but the industry was expecting so much more from Madonna. Sounds familiar, Gaga? To this day, Erotica is definitely a fan's favorite, and Madonna still performs on tour songs from the album such as Deeper and Deeper. In 1994, which is also the year I was born, Madonna released Bedtime Stories. Just like with her previous album, Madonna sold a lot of copies. We're talking about 8 million. Although the industry was still expecting more from Madonna, Bedtime Stories might be one of her most memorable albums, thanks to songs like Take a Bow and Human Nature. This album also marks the end of what some would call the overly sexual era. After 2 commercially disappointing albums for Madonna's standards, she was hungry for a hit. She worked day and night on reinventing her sound and her image, and oh boy did she reinvent herself. Ray of Light was a hit. The 1998 album marks what the industry likes to call the rebirth of Madonna, and is even regarded by many critics and fans as her best album. The softer and more spiritual Madonna managed to sell 16 million copies of Ray of Light and led her album to peak at number 1 in many countries. With hits like Ray of Light and Frozen, not that Frozen by the way, Madonna was finally up to Madonna's standards and had no intention whatsoever to give it all up. In 2000, Madonna released another hit record, Music was her first album to peak at #1 in the US since her 1989 album, Like a Prayer. 11 million copies were sold. Today, the pop electronica album might not be regarded as her most iconic record, but nevertheless, thanks to hits like Music and Don't Tell Me, it certainly won't be forgotten. Before we continue, I would like to add a little disclaimer. In the years 2000 and up to present day, the music industry has been going through a rough patch. So record sales have been drastically decreasing due to illegal downloads and later on streaming platforms. Thus, comparing record sales from this point on in Madonna's career won't necessarily be a good indicator of the success of an album. That said, regardless of the state of the industry, Madonna's 2003 release was not the hit people were expecting. In retrospect, American Life is often regarded as too avant-garde for its time. But at the time, the album received mixed reviews and failed to impress even some hardcore fans. The album sold 6 million copies, but still succeeded to peak at #1 in many countries, including the US. Although this album might not have been the hit that Madonna wanted, it would push the Queen of Pop to reinvent herself yet again. And that reinvention is gonna pay off. When Confessions on a Dance Floor was released in 2005, Madonna could not have wished for a more groundbreaking comeback. All of a sudden, she was the hit girl all over again. Her album was back to #1 on every single major market. It even sold 10 million copies. It was the comeback of the century. Not only was the album critically acclaimed, it was also loved by longtime fans and new and younger fans alike. The first single, Hung Up, was even considered the most successful dance song of the decade, according to Billboard. Not only was Hung Up good, other singles like Sorry, Get Together, and Jump were playing everywhere non-stop. Madonna was back and proved once and for all that she, only she, was the Queen of Pop forever. In 2008, Madonna released Hard Candy, another success. Yet again, Madonna's album peaked at #1 on all major music markets. The album sold 4 million copies and featured one of Madonna's most beloved duet to date, 4 Minutes, featuring Justin Timberlake and Timbaland. Other singles included Give It To Me and Miles Away. Although this album probably won't be viewed as her best album in career, the favorable reviews and warm welcome from the fans will definitely help the Hard Candy era being remembered as a successful part of Madonna's career. MDNA is Madonna's following album. Released in 2012 after her critically acclaimed performance at the Super Bowl, MDNA received mixed reviews. The first single, Give Me All Your Lovin', was heavily associated from the get-go with her performance at the halftime show. She even performed it live that evening. MDNA peaked at #1 in the US and 2 million copies were sold. Other singles included Girl Gone Wild, Masterpiece, and Turn Up the Radio. And by the way, this record marks Madonna's only venture into pop EDM music. Which leads us to her latest release to date, Rebel Heart. Released in 2015, Rebel Heart is, generally speaking, not considered as a fan's favorite. It is Madonna's first album to peak at #2 in the US since her 1998 album, Ray of Light. Madonna sold 1 million units and received positive critical reviews for the album. That said, this year, Madonna's back and she will release her latest album titled Madame X. She already released the first single, Madeline, featuring Maluma, who, by the way, might not be widely known in the US, but nevertheless is a massive superstar in his own right on various Spanish-speaking markets. Don't believe me? Just go and check out hit songs of his such as Vente Pa Ca featuring Ricky Martin and Chantaje featuring the one and only Shakira. What did you guys think of the new single? Are you excited for Madonna's latest album? Do you think she can pull off another #1 album? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell button to never miss another video of ours. Also, we would love to know who you would like us to cover next time. Until then, we'll see you somewhere on the internet. Bye!